and more specifically, beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And welcome to Midday with Reverend Don. I finally figured out how to upload my own background, and today we have paneling um, as opposed to Stonehenge. And if you regularly follow Midday with Reverend Don, you'll know that we can talk directly in my chat room. If you type your question or comment onto whatever platform you happen to be watching on, it will show up here. Our subject for today is going to be about the symbolism of numbers when they show up randomly in your life and repeatedly. What does that mean? But we'll intersperse it with any other conversation that people wish to have. And I think I'm going to start by saying happy Monday to everyone. I hope everyone is having a good day. And if you're not having a good day, then let this program become a reset for your day and let it become a good day now. And hello to Renee in the chat room. Hello to Tom in the chat room. It's good to see you both. And hello to Mary in the chat room. It's good to see you, Mary. And hello to Calvin in the chat room. It's good to see you, Calvin. And it's good to see so many people so quickly in the chat room. I love having the chat room. I love being able to talk to people. And if at some point some of our regular viewers would be interested in perhaps doing an interview or otherwise coming on the show, let me know. That's a possibility we could look into as well. I do sometimes feel that me sitting here as a single talking head probably gets rather boring, but I try to keep it from doing that. And Mary says, "Thank you. That's an awesome reminder to start the day. I needed that today. Wonderful." I've noticed that for a number of people, the day didn't seem to start well. So again, we change it now. From here forward, today is a good day for everyone. Um, I want to take a moment to mention my Patreon. If you like my work, if you like things like my midday broadcast, the best way to support my work is through Patreon. We have a number of options there, um, and it is um, most recent option has been a more or less daily picture. It's been every couple of days, and some of them have been parts out of my life. Some have been out of my family history. We'll see what all comes up in daily pictures, but we've been doing that recently. We have our Monday night chat. Theoretically, we have a newsletter. I have to do it for November yet, but November is not over, and so a newsletter is on its way. And at the highest level, we have a monthly consultation that is available, which a few people have taken advantage of, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful to all of my patrons. And thank you. And you can find my Patreon at revdonlewis.com. And of course, I've been promoting the Corellian Book of the Dead, which you can find at corellianpublishing.com, and Travel Magic, which you can find at corellian.com, and numerous other titles that you can find at corellianpublishing.com. But going on to our subject for today, we should probably start with a brief review of what exactly do we mean by the term omen. And an omen is a message from spirit that comes to you in a language you can understand, more or less randomly, though you may have asked for it. But generally speaking, an omen comes as a random response. So, for example, you might ask how a certain project will go, but the way you get the answer will be more or less random as an omen. Divination, in my opinion, is generally speaking an organized system of omens drawn randomly. Um, and omens often come unasked for. And that's where these numbers come in. So a lot of people have the experience of seeing certain numbers that repeat in their lives at random moments, sometimes utterly meaningless moments, sometimes very meaningful moments, and frequently both. And it's usually a particular series of numbers. Sometimes there'll be a couple of them. The most common is 1111. Um, a lot of people have that. I have that myself, even now. Um, after so many years of it appearing in my life. And what do these things mean? Well, they are a message from your spirit guides reminding you of something you need to know. This can also happen with things like finding coins randomly. I think I may have remarked on one of our last programs. Many people find if they find a penny randomly, they take that as an omen of good luck. I do. And if possible, I will pick up the penny, although I don't know that you need to pick up the penny to receive the good luck. If you find a dime, that's said to be the influence of the ancestors. And again, ideally, you pick it up and carry it with you, or at least you acknowledge it. But it's there to remind you that these things are there, they're coming, and the numbers are the same way. The number 11 is about psychic growth and expansion. Numerologically, it's described as the master number of the psychic. When you see a number like 11 or a sequence like 1111, um, it has to do with growing your spiritual connection, um, extending your psychic abilities. Um, it's a very positive spiritual number and indicates being on a spiritual path and the need to remain on a spiritual path. For a lot of people, um, the number 1111 is the number they're likely to see. Some people refer to these as, quote, angel numbers. Um, Not myself particularly, but some people do. And they'll say they come from the guardian angels. I say they come from the spirit guides. These are basically the same concepts. Um, or you could say they come from the ancestors, depending entirely on how you relate to the higher powers. But the concept is the same in all cases. 1111 again is psychic expansion. Some of the other numbers you might encounter, um, any double number is significant in numerology, and this is part of numerology. The number 33 is one that people often encounter, or a 3333. Um, and this is a number of communication, spiritual communication, of spirit messages trying to reach you, um, guides wanting to talk to you. And if you see that number with 33, it means that your guides are trying to strengthen their communication with you. And could also mean other kinds of psychic communication trying to open. And hello to Lavola in the chat room. And Lavola says, this is very interesting to me. I'm glad. It's an interesting subject. Um, it is, again, a very psychic number, but in this case, specifically about communication. And one of the various numbers you might encounter, the number 55, um, or might be 5555, depending on how you're perceiving it. Um, this has to do with change and movement and growth in your life, and generally in more physical ways. So if you're encountering the number 5555, it's telling you change is coming or ongoing or possibly necessary. But it's definitely telling you that the status quo is not what is necessary, but rather new things need to come, and most likely are already in process. Um, and I would certainly perceive that as a positive number. Um, Not always a restful number, but a positive number, but then it is a five. If you're familiar with tarot, in tarot, five is often expressed in a negative sense, which I would not inherently agree with, but it does have to do with movement and often with inner or outer conflict of different kinds. Sometimes the conflict is just that change needs to happen, and maybe you're not entirely there for it, but it's still necessary. A number num Another number that you might encounter is 66. And this is a number of manifestation. You might also find it as 6666. Um, and also, I might point out it's that connected to that old number 666, which was originally the number of the goddess Venus. When you see this number, it is about manifestation in the physical world. Um, it is a spiritual number in that we manifest spiritually, but the effects are physical. And so it's about bringing your spirituality into the physical world and a focus on physical things. Um, and it can also be a reminder to keep the physical world grounded and in balance with the spiritual world. But these are some of the things you would expect from um, the number 66 or any variation thereon. Um, Now, Livola asks if I could do numerology related to tarot sometime too. I certainly could. Um, One of the interesting things to deviate slightly from the subject, if you're familiar with the Tarot of Hecate, the tarot I created back in the 1980s, it's a 100-card tarot. Lady Bitterwind insisted it must be a 100-card tarot. She felt that any tarot with less than 100 cards was not properly complete, and that there was more that tarot had to say. One of the things that did is it changed the numerology of many cards um, in ways that made great sense to me, um, but gave me a definitely an education on tarot and numerology and how the numerology of the cards can change how you look at them. And this is not the first time the numerology of a particular card has changed. For example, the Justice and Fortune cards have changed places in many decks, which drastically changes their respective numerologies. Um, so yeah, we certainly could discuss that one day, and there's quite a bit to say there. Now, going back to where we are, where were we? We were, I think, on 66. But you know, the numbers continue that way, and they're laid out according to the meanings of numerology. And the number 7, again, is a number of spirituality, a number of following a spiritual path and spiritual pursuits. So if you encounter the number 77, or variations such as 7777, this is speaking about your personal spiritual path and staying on that spiritual path. And hello to Rev Melanie in the chat room. It's good to see you, Rev Melanie. Um, and the number 8. The number 8 is a very interesting numerological phenomenon. The number 8 is the number of extremity. Can be extreme success or extreme failure. Nothing in between. So if you encounter the number 888 or 8888 or any variation on that, it's talking about going to extremes. It's talking about going full tilt into whatever you're doing. And it's one that I would say should definitely require some meditation because it can be a blessing or a curse depending on how you look at it and whether it is indicating great success or great failure, but it's telling you to pay attention to what you're doing and to the results of what you're doing. It is a number of results in a manner of speaking because um, it is all about the cause and effect between your actions and what you get. So if you get the number 88, pay attention to it. The number 99 or 9999 or any variation on that is um, largely about humanitarianism, giving to other people, giving to the world. So it's the number of service. So if you get that number, it's telling you to be more giving, more charitable, and to go forth and to love the world. So that's what that number would have to do. Hello to Janet in the chat room. It's good to see you, Janet. So all of these numbers, they have their significance. And when they appear to you randomly, and this happens in different ways. Sometimes people look at a clock and they happen to see this certain number. Every time they suddenly think to look at the clock, even though nothing else is uniting the experiences, that's one of the ways it will come to you randomly. Or it may show up in printed form. It may show up in any number of forms. But that's a message from Spirit. And these are the different things those messages can mean. Um, so that basically is my conversation about the different meanings of those numbers. However, again, they can show up in different sequences. It can be just the basic number, which means just its basic meaning, but when it comes in like multiples, it's increasing the importance of the message, increasing the strength of the meaning. So if you just saw the number 11, that's a good psychic number, but when you see 1111, it's emphasizing that message more. And and that's true for all of these. So, and Rev Melanie says, funny, I tuned in this afternoon. I've been seeing sequences very frequently these past couple of days. 444 and 111. Now, what do these numbers mean? The number 4 is the number of Saturn. It's the number of the 4 elements, and it refers to worldly life and lessons. So if you're getting 444, it's saying pay attention to the physical things happening in your life. Pay attention to the lessons they have for you and make sure you're doing the things you need to do. That's what the number 444 means. It's calling your attention to making sure you're taking care of business, for want of a better way to put it. The number 1 is about the self. And if you're seeing 111 as opposed to 1111, I would say that's saying you also, while you're taking care of business, you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And to see both of those together um, is saying that yes, you need to take care of other people, you need to take care of the things in your life, but don't do it at the expense of yourself. And to have both of them, I would say, is calling for a balance. And Rev Melanie says, yes, that makes sense for sure with 4. Um, I'm glad. And that's the meaning of those two. Now, Janet says, I've been seeing 2222 in various places. Now, 2 is the number of partnership. So I would say if you're seeing 2222, it is telling you that other people are going to be important in the things you're doing, and that if you're not already working with others, you should be. Um, it is the number of, well, again, partnership, complementary relationships. Um, could be a romantic number, but I don't normally think of it that way um, because it's the number of the moon. Whereas I think I would look to the number of Venus more for a romantic number. But none of these, when they show up in this kind of message, usually has that meaning. Um, and let's see where else we can go with these. They can show up in many different ways, and and people also sometimes get various combinations of numbers, and then you would want to take into account, and this is how you do numerology. You take into account the different meanings we've already talked about and how they would interact with each other. Um, and Red Melody says, I always find it funny when it appears randomly. And yes, it can be very striking when that happens. And that's the whole point, that it's random. Um, that you are not seeking it out. And Melanie says, for me, I see it on the clock, but also I'll see them on my kids' math homework. Exactly. They'll show up in unexpected places. And this brings us to the very heart of metaphysics, kind of unexpectedly. But the heart of metaphysics to me is the Hermetic saying, as above, so below. Um, Everything else in metaphysics ultimately comes back to this. And it has part of its meaning is the idea that the creative power is reflected in everything in the world, and so are its abilities. But part of what that means is everything is connected, and there really are not coincidences. We see these numbers randomly, but there really is no random. Um, it is the action of spirit. Um, oh, and Melanie says, when I say that, I mean at the same time. It will be on the clock and in the homework at the same moment that I'm looking. Um, yes, absolutely. Um, I think the most interesting one I can think of, I was sitting with a friend in their kitchen talking, and suddenly their microwave came on with no one touching it or doing anything, and it came on to the number 212, 2 minutes, 12 seconds. Um, that was definitely an example of this kind of thing. It was not a message for me, I don't believe. But if we saw the number 212, how would we take that? Um, and I would take that as the two is partnership, the one is focus on the self, and the two of them together is saying yes, take part in the partnerships you're involved in, but also make sure you're making sure for yourself at the same time. Do not plow everything in one direction. I think I would take that number that way. Now, Melanie says, "Oh my God, yes, that once happened to me years ago. My microwave kept showing 126. That's my dad's birthday, and that, of course, I would assume would be a message from your father. When you see somebody's birthday, that's them communicating with you, or I would understand it that way. Um, or if the number you're seeing is an important anniversary, it would carry that meaning also. And Rev Melanie says he had passed away when I was 12. I would say that was definitely his letting you know he is there. Um, and why in that way? Why have it show up on the microwave? Um, for whatever reason, that's the way it could come through. And it's interesting because when you work with spirit guides, when you work with spirits, they can absolutely influence electronic machinery. Melania says, I laughed and told him I wasn't hungry. I would assume he was amused by that. And people can do that also, um, but you don't encounter it often. Um, and I've usually found that people can only telekinetically influence electronics in relatively small ways. I've seen people who can turn a TV on and off by looking at it, or a light in the same way, and some other things, but usually only at certain times. And but I do think this is something that is going to become more a part of human life as we go forward. I think it is one of those arts we will probably perfect more, but I don't see it being particularly perfected right now. Um, I'm sure there are some people out there who are better at it than others, and I'm sure that there are people who'll tell us they're perfect at it. Um, but my attitude on that is, show me some examples and we'll talk. Um, but in my experience, it certainly does happen. And some people do have some skill with it. Um, but nothing that would make Mickey Mouse want to apprentice to you. How's that? Making a reference to the Sorcerer's Apprentice for those who missed that. I find I must explain jokes when I make them, or people just don't get them. Oh, and hello to Max Aka in the chat room. And Max says, I have been experiencing the point you are making there for over 15 years. The number 104 keeps popping up in certain situations and seems to be a message to my own soul. Exactly. 104. What would 104 do for us? I would think, again, you're dealing with the number 1 and the number 4. With a space between them. 1 is focusing on yourself, and 2 is focusing on your lessons in life and the material issues in life. So I would say it's saying, again, not to let one overwhelm the other. And the 0 between 0, well, 0 is arguably the number of deity, or at least of the soul. Um, and so it's saying that the physical things in your life are very important to your higher self. And when we say the physical things, I don't mean stuff. I mean the experiences. So the experiences and the lessons are very important in your life, and stay focused with them, I would think. That's how I would interpret that number, unless it has some other meaning for you. Now, as I said before, anniversary dates, people's birthdays, can have a different meaning for the people to whom they have relevance. So let's say that your mother, who is now in spirit, was born on November 11th. If you saw the number 1111, it could have a very different meaning for you than what it would have otherwise. Um, my mother was born on November 25th. If I were to see the number 1125, I would certainly take it as a reference to her and to her spiritual influence in my life. So, in this, as in all things related to psychic messages, there is we'll say the textbook meaning, for want of a better way to put it, and also the personal meaning. And they're not always the same. And in looking at what it means to you, you want to consider all possibilities. With that, I see that we've come to the end of our half hour. I hope that you've enjoyed this program. I've enjoyed this conversation. And if you have additional subjects you'd like me to talk about, feel free to put them on my Facebook page. I do have a small list of subjects people have been giving me. My dear friend George has asked me to talk about the difference between paganism and Wicca. That will be quite a talk. Um, but we will probably do that one day here soon. And we have a number of other things people have put up. Numerology in general was one that people were asking about. Um, Correllian ancestors is one people have asked about. So keep telling me what you'd like to hear. I'll keep talking, or I'll also simply tell you whatever is going on. Um, so with that, I'm going to say good day. I hope the rest of your day is a wonderful day, and let us close with our prayer as we always do. And Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we ask you to help us in this moment to create a good and wonderful day for ourselves. However our morning has been, may the rest of our day go forward in very good and positive ways. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and respect, knowing you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence. I'll see you tomorrow. I love you all, and I love talking with you in this and every format. And I will, again, I will see you tomorrow, and until then, may you be blessed.